Hi, everyone. It is Martha Novak, and this is a show called Real Talk with Martha Novak. We're going to talk about a very serious subject today, which is the coronavirus. But you keep in mind that what we do here is talk about consciousness, deepening consciousness. And so today, I think our show is about the two C's that are on the table for us: coronavirus and consciousness. There we are. We're going to talk about them in a lot of different aspects. Keep in mind, this isn't what you're going to hear on the news. And do keep in mind, these are a lot of my opinions, but I think that truth, ascended truth, confirms itself in a lot of ways. And I think that we are seeing that as well as the truth that, all the false truths that are out there. So we're just going to talk. I'm just presenting this as it is, as I see it. Let's do a prayer, getting us all on the same page, and then we're going to launch into a lot of things to think about. Okay? Thank you for being with us today. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much for the opportunity to talk today, to be under the banner of loving you and deepening ourselves in you and bringing that to our families, our communities, and our world. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this as we open ourselves to the truth that lies in your enlightenment in us, all unique, all individual, and that we move past the ego child's mind, that we may receive what we're supposed to do in a first, second, and third step. We thank you so much, dear God, for the opportunity that is in this very confusing time to people. And we thank you so much for the knowledge that you have us all. We thank you so much for all of it. Now we open ourselves to say, we know nothing. And it's the you through us and through all things that know it all and that will always have answers and solutions for us when we're ready to receive them. We thank you so much for all of this, dear God. And we say this prayer in your name, in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening in. Thank you. And amen. And I see some people writing in right now. Couldn't help but smile. Hey, Kat. Hey, Hope. I'm so glad that you're with us today. We're going to talk about the coronavirus and consciousness. There's so much more to say. When I was writing this morning, I get up very early on Sunday mornings and meditate and write. And, I realized there was so much more to say than I'm saying. But this will start us out, okay? And know that I very much care about you. And by the way, I want to put on the table first that I am very much in empathy and sympathy for the people that are really suffering out there. Families and animals suffering, financial suffering, health suffering, relationship suffering. I really am getting it. My job here is to take, honestly, I think, very complicated subjects, at least they're complicated for me, consciousness, right? And now this virus, and whittle these things down to size so we can deal with them and think about them differently and open deeper levels of ourselves where peace resides. So we're going to talk about that today. I want to, though, qualify that because while I might sometimes talk about abstractions, I never forget that this is striking us in a very personal way as well, some more than others. We could, in the body of this, hit on why certain people are suffering so much. My job is always, and I take it very seriously, to do what I can to relieve that suffering, to give you different ways to think. So know that whether I succeed or fail today, I certainly am trying to put some things on the table that help me, and I hope in doing so these will help you as well. 20 years ago, I started a wonderful class that is still with me. They're advanced students of mine. And I remember telling them that we were getting them ready. I've told them, by the way, many times since, that we were getting ready for something enormous. This was chaos that was coming. Now, this is not to frighten you. This is to tell you that I've got some answers here in our way. And if they're your way, I'm just thrilled. But you need to know that this is not going to be the end. We've got a lot of chaos coming. Call it whatever you will. We don't even have names for it yet. But I am here to tell you it's coming and it's here, and this is what I was talking about 20 years ago. Hello, Jay. Well, thank you. He says, our friend Jay says, great topic for our time. Well, it is the topic of the day. I haven't wanted to write about this. Everybody says, do a blog on this. Let us know what you're thinking, because everybody is talking about this out here. So I finally had to get around to, well, maybe we should talk about it with a radio show where we can really talk. I'm so tired of everybody speculating on things. This is not a speculation. This is what I am told intuitively. I was told 20 years ago. Tons of chaos. Now, what do we do about it? And that's what this show is about today, because just one of the opportunities to deal with this, we have the coronavirus here. I've seen all the signs of this coming, so have you. The energy changed on the planet a number of years ago, where the unexpected is always what happens. How do you prepare for that? Well, there's only really one way to prepare for it in my book, because how can you prepare for something that is unexpected? You're not aware of it, right? Okay. The way to prepare for it is to prepare you and how you react. All right? Many people are reacting all over the place to this. Some people, because it's so habitual with worry and anxiety, don't even know that they're having a very big negative stress reaction. This is what they always do, right? But is it? See, I think what's happening right now is a great we're having a great opportunity. It's a call to arms, not in the usual way. It's a call to action, really. We are supposed to do something other than what we always do. Everything is changing. Well, what's changing beside the obvious? And what will, by the way, continue to change beside the obvious? I'll tell you what it is. It's energy. It's the vibration of the planet, of the universe. Things are getting faster. Our stress levels are rising to meet it, instead of our deepening in ourselves so we can go with. New technologies are here, whether they are healthy or not. New medicine procedures are here, whether they are healthy or not. Vaccines are being hurried into production, whether they are healthy or not. I can only speak from my experience 4 years ago, because I think I need to explain that last part. I have a deviated septum. I'm doing something else for it now, which I think is going to help quite a lot. But I've always had a hard time breathing from breaking my nose a number of years ago. I won't even go into all that, but I broke it on the stage bowing into a chair. silly story for another time. Anyway, because I have this, and the doctor seemed to make sense and said, you should have a flu shot of a pneumonia shot because, you know, you are susceptible to having sinusitis because you've already got a blockage. And it seemed to make sense, right? By 4 o'clock, I couldn't walk. It wasn't the vaccine, it was what's mixed with the vaccine. I'm only telling you my experience. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. What I am is somebody that says we should clean up our vaccines. That's what I think. All right? Just putting that on the table. Throw it away if you don't believe that. What I want to put on the table, because I hear so many speculations out there. Again, I did not want to add my voice to this, but here I am anyway. This is not a test from God, what's going on out there. It's not a challenge, although many of you are feeling challenged. This is an opportunity to set some things right in ourselves. And this is what the show is about, too. Now I'm going to talk about something that I think is rather unpopular. But here it is. The hysteria that we are seeing in the world right now is because we're having to come face to face with the fact that our faith that we've been saying that we feel so strongly about isn't reliable, isn't working for us. There's a writer that I just love out there. I want to put several writers on the table for you that I think will give you great courage and help you think about these things. This man's name is Sam Harris. He wrote a book a while back. Now, what was the name of that book? The End of Faith. That was the first book I read on his of him. In that book, first of all, I was shocked. I loved the book. But when the book came out, holy Moses, was that a controversial book? I think it still is. I think this idea that our faith isn't strong enough, which was what his supposition was for half of that book. And he proved it, by the way. And we're proving it right now. Hysterical reaction to a lot of this, instead of just doing what we need to do, right? This was the premise of his book. He'd spent the first part of that book tearing every religion apart. Nothing, ladies and gentlemen, was spared. Did he make a good case? Absolutely. This thinker. He put forth, and now here I am doing the same thing, that if your faith is not such that no matter what happens to you, you can rely on that and have a peace beyond all understanding, we need to do some deeper work on ourselves. Guess what? As I was reading that book, it was real fun. I thought, man, this is the angriest man I've ever heard of. I mean, he makes a fabulous case, and I just can hardly put the book down because he's making such a fabulous case. But oh my God, is he angry about religion, right? Look, he gives us the answer to everything. That's what the rest of the book is about, and it's about what all his books are about, and that is the only thing that's going to save us is a deepening of consciousness. Well, if you don't think I believe in that, then you haven't been listening to these shows, because I certainly believe that. He wrote another book I think is great, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion. Look, I'm not as militant as he is about religion. You know, believe what you need to believe. I was born Presbyterian. I think I fit into the thing of spirituality now more than religion. But whatever religion works for you, go beyond it. The only reason I say that, and I think this is his point too, although I am always reluctant to tell you what I think writers mean, as a writer. Oh, there's something wrong with that. But anyway, what I was going to say is one of the really important premises here is you got to have a faith that can go through anything without making you nervous and worried and upset and scared. We need to go beyond what religion tells us simply because it's a dogma. It's a dogma. A dogma, by the nature of a dogma, is a set of ideas or rules or ways to be. It's a set. And if we totally subscribe to that, we are subscribing to that set. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's just me. I think anything that makes your life better is wonderful. But is it making your life better if you're scared to death of something like this? No. We need to look at more. I'm not saying throw it in the garbage. I'm saying keep what works and add some more and let the rest go. That's what I'm saying here. It's certainly not a popular thing for me to say. Not a popular thing for him to say. That's why his book was so controversial. But I think right now we're coming face to face with how well the current state of our faith works for us. And, you know, I see, because I work with energy, I see everything in stratas. Okay? We have been for a long time working in a strata that works for us. We assume certain things will be there tomorrow, right? We've been kind of living by rote. This is a marvelous opportunity right now to rethink everything and to go down into a deeper level of ourselves and our God. God's all you are. It's not an outside God that I believe in right now. I hope you don't. A deeper level of understanding, faith, peace, and resilience and creativity. We're going to talk about those things big time. I think Sam Harris, like all good writers, is very, I think he was in the zone when he wrote some of this. And I think his premise is sound. The absolute chaos that's happening in the world right now is showing us how much work we need to do on ourselves. Now, I want to put something on the table for you, because often an egoic child's mind presentment is, oh, it's too late. It's never too late. It's never too late to do the work that I'm going to present to you today. If you choose not to do it now, and it's just fine that you don't, you're going to experience more suffering. You just will. It's not any kind of punishment by God. Oh, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. The energy of God is nothing but love. It's the inevitable result of you not being on these deeper levels of experience of self, of God, of peace. That's all. That's all it is. You see, it's not about what's happening out there in the world. It's about how you're reacting to it. And that indicates this level, these stratas. And we all have the ability to go down there. I want to say to you, many people come in and they'll say to me, oh, I wish I started this work years ago. I was always interested, but I didn't start. And I said, well, all that experience and all that suffering has made you ready to do it quicker. Don't you understand? So that just shoots out of the water. It's too late for me. That's an excuse. All that means to me, if you say that to me in a session, and all that means to you, and that's why I'm putting it on the table, is that you aren't going to do the work. And that's all right too. But if you know that you're going to suffer more that way, that the suffering is familiar, that's why we are holding on to it. It's familiar, right? Sometimes the familiar is more comfortable for us than the unknown, even though I'm here to tell you the unknown is better. The Bible even tells you that all things work for your good. All things work for your good, but you have to go with. And you have to be adaptable. And you have to be ready to shift and grow and deepen. And we've got a wonderful, absolutely wonderful opportunity right now. We're going to talk about it in a lot of ways. Okay, I want to talk about, you all know that in my career, I have, it's all the same work, it's all energy work, but I have started out as an actor. I taught acting for a long time, had an acting school, went into coaching businesses on these energetic principles that, take you into your highest self so that you can live your potential. And now, at this age of my life, I'm putting that all together. All right. I want to tell you about an acting exercise that's a standard one. This isn't something that came out of my little brain, but this is the standard exercising that a lot of us use. So I have actors up here, let's say, and they're not reaching the emotional depth they can. You know what it's usually about? They're using their bodies to express. So if I need them to express emotionally, you know what we do? I tie them up. This is a standard thing. We'll tie them. We'll take their hands, put them behind their body, tie their hands, tie their feet. Sometimes we've had somebody stand behind them and tie their head if you're still trying to move your head, trying to express yourself. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to take out any opportunity to express through the body. Now, if we were blind, science says that our other senses, if we decide not to go into a corner, feel sorry for yourself and shut everything down and, are bitter and alone, what happens if we go with is that other senses rush in to take their place. Right? Yeah. Okay. So that's what happens in this acting exercise. I tie somebody's hands and feet. I won't let anybody move their head. And so, all of a sudden, saying the same lines they have said and taken for granted and said by rote, all of a sudden they have a depth of meaning. All of a sudden the words are important. No matter how inconsequential the words seemed when you were using the physical body. Physical body is the vehicle through which we express more shallow things a lot of times. So in the acting class, we would stop them from using that, and sure enough, they would deepen. I want you all to think of this coronavirus as that. We're not able to do the usual running around. We're not able to do the usual connecting, getting together with friends and having our drinks and all that kind of stuff. We're not used to that. That's taken away. That sense, that level is taken away. So, we have a chance to deepen in ways. We have a chance to really feel and to really connect and to love and to care and to understand. Not only about our fellow man, but about us, who we are, and who our God is to us. God did not bring this plague, as the Bible is fond of stating. This is a very fundamental and simplistic way of looking at what's happening. I think that at one point in our evolvement, and I think with a lot of people that have written text, spiritual text, They all have agendas for us. Pardon me. That is not the coronavirus. I'm sitting here in April with pollen out there. And the pollen is making my nose run and making me sneeze from time to time. I'm fine. Okay. So that's a simplistic way of looking at it, that God has brought a plague on us and is punishing us for this or that or the other. That's absolutely not. If you believe it and this disturbs you, go right ahead and believe it. I am just putting some ideas on the table. I think as the world speeds up, as everything is changing, we are given the opportunity to change with it. We consider some of these changes natural. I mean, stars explode and universes are formed, right? We say, well, that's happening up there. Sure. We bring a new baby or a new puppy, not that I'm saying they're the same thing, into the house. Chaos reigns until the new order emerges, right? Okay. Chaos is always goes to new order. There are some things we accept about that, but when something is vastly dissimilar in our world and in our lives, we get upset, you see, and all is going from chaos to order. But we have got a kind of chaos that is here in the world now, and I don't just mean the coronavirus. I mean the energy of change and growth and evolvement that we're being challenged with right now. It's different. We need to, this is about not changing our schedules or finding when to sleep, as is the case of a new baby in our house, but finding out who we are. That comes first, before we find out what we do with it. All right. Whether you like it or not, New Order is going to be the order of the day for years to come. We're going to be arguing about it. It's going to happen the rest of my life. It'll probably happen the rest of yours, because everybody has a different opinion. Everybody has a different consciousness about things, right? Everybody's got a different solution out of that consciousness. It's interesting because consciousness studies, and many people like writers who tap into something beyond them when they're writing, if they do that, have come up with this coronavirus thing or something similar, right? But what I have said in many of these radio shows, I still put on the table. I'm going to remind you of it. One of the finest traits of human nature is that we can be adaptable. We have a talent for being adaptable. That is, if we're unless we're not. And what interferes with our adaptability? And by the way, what comes out of adaptability but resilience? But what interferes with that? Issues interfere. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, my darling Janos, and I love you with all my heart, and I'm glad that you're well too, okay? I know who you are. All right, here we go. You will need resilience and adaptability the rest of your life. Want to put that on the table. What gifts? Let's talk about the gifts that adaptability brings you. Well, certainly a deep communication with energy, and many of us call that the God that you are. That's one thing. It'll keep you on the cutting edge of change, growth, and opportunity. Call it what you will. Guys, we get so hung up on believing in God or believing in spirituality. You're all spiritual beings. Because you're all energy. You know, I call that spirituality. You can call that anything you want. But don't let words stop you from knowing these deep levels of who you really are. And what we must do now to have a more resilient experience in this world as everything changes. We're either listening to that part of us, or we're not listening, or we're listening and we hear something and we don't move. because I want to say that if we're listening at all, we're getting ideas that we think are ours and ours alone because we're in that ego state, right? But they're telling us to move. I was thinking of this morning, a dear friend of mine who lives in a big metropolitan area and who works for an enormous corporation who for the last year, thank you, darling, for saying that. And for the last year has been knowing she needed to leave this company. This company is going to go down, by the way, in this energy. Okay, it's already struggling, right? Later soon, it's not going to be there. She's known she needs to get another job. She got her resume together and she's been half-heartedly sending it out. But there are always things to do more than pursue that. You know, she's got a family to take care of, and she's interested in this or that, and she's searching for this. And she didn't do what she was supposed to do. God told her, maybe as much as 1.5 years ago now, to get the hell out, do something else. She's loaded with talent, so she's going to be all right. And you keep in mind, you're being called by something like that so that you'll be even more all right, so you don't have to worry, right? But we don't act on those things. Now, I don't, and if you do, then God bless you, go right ahead. But I don't take the Bible literally. I don't. But I do think metaphorically it's got some really interesting things in there. You know, there's proof, for example, that, and granted, it's probably empirical proof at that, but I don't know. Who knows? That in the Bible, they said that Jesus was taken to Bethlehem. Joseph, his father, had a dream that he had to mount that pregnant wife up and get him over to Bethlehem and out of Nazareth. There's actually some evidence that they stayed in Nazareth. Who cares? I don't care one way or another, except to say, I think that's a good metaphor. Joseph had a dream and acted on it. My dear friend in another state, in a big metropolitan actor, heard the same call. Your business is not going to survive. It's not her business, by the way. She just works in this company. Find another job. Do something else. Expand your talents. Go and, let's do this instead. She didn't choose to listen. Now, I'm not saying that's going to ruin her life, and I'm not saying that's going to ruin anybody's life. I'm saying start listening, because there's a little suffering and worry involved if you don't. If you do, you're going to be all right. Move. Don't be afraid. Listen to those calls from within. I believe, and you may not, and that's fine, but I believe everybody knows everything. I believe everybody knows everything. We may not know the name of it, coronavirus, but we do know we're vulnerable and these things could happen. A lot more is going to happen. I don't know the name of them. All I know, sitting here, loving you in this moment, is work on you being adaptable. Work on going with, work on listening, and work on your resilience, because that's part of this. And you're going to be fine. Even if you've never worked on it before, now's the time. What is that wonderful Chinese thing that says the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today? That's what I'm saying. Go on and get to work on this. So what other gifts does adaptability bring you? The ability to think out of the box of what you consider habitual. Gives you a whole level of that. The ability to be creative instead of fearful. Chaos, guys, is your most creative time. The thing that shuts it down is when we're afraid. And when we're using our energy to be afraid and worried and all of that, that's what shuts it down, because it's a use of energy. Here's your energy. You're going to use it that way, or you're going to use it this way. That's really what this is about. It's a creative time. It gives you the ability to move on your ideas, brings up courage that you never thought you had, this adaptability and resilience. It helps you grow, which is absolutely essential in times of change. Thank you. Thank you, sweetheart. Okay, so let me just review the points I've made so far, because I don't want you to lose them in all this talk. Strengthen your faith. I strengthen your faith. Strengthen this level of you where the peace resides. You can call it what you will, but strengthen that to know that you're all right, that you're moving with the times, that you're doing something. You see? That you're doing what you should be doing. I have always been told, because quite frankly, I don't think I'm smart enough to do anything but listen, but I listen real well. Okay? And I've always been told what's next in many cases. I was told to write my third book for some reason a year and a half ago. And I didn't know why, but man, I was passionate about it. It took 3 solid months to write the first draft. Morning, noon, and night, I couldn't stop it. I still can't stop, It's at the editor's right now. But I was told. I did it. What are you being told to do? And it might be to rest, to wait, to be an open channel, to hear what's next at some point when you're ready to hear it. That's great. But be at peace about that. You're in again, I'm just repeating, you're in a strata of energy that has become rote, and it's time to go deeper so that you can have that peace that spirituality promises us, about a peace beyond all understanding. It's real important. I would say particularly if you have entertained the idea of being an agnostic or an atheist, I would recommend Sam Harris's book all the way. He is just brilliant. So get on Amazon. Oh, thank you so much, darling. I am talking to someone I love enormously, named Janos. I want you guys to read his books, because he's going to speak your language and take you into the same thing I'm trying to take you into right now. He's a brilliant man. And Sam Harris, I hope sometime you hear how much I admire your work. All right. Your mind, your talents are the greatest natural resource this planet has. I've been telling businesses that people are it for them. That's the only natural resource you have. You better develop this, right? You use who you are right now to enrich yourself. This is the time for this. And you are doing it for yourself, certainly, in your happiness, but for your family and for your community and for the energy of this world. It's all cumulative, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. Now, if you've been listening to the shows, you've heard me lecture every week on coming out of the airy-fairy fantasy stuff. You have the privilege of making this energy that I'm talking about, call it God, call it whatever you will, real, and a living thing in you. Fantasy is its own reward. And most people have it, and most people use it whenever they feel bad, but you can't create anything out of fantasy because it's supposed to be a feel-good place that you go and you participate in, but you can't bring it into the real world. It's different from having a vision of the future or a dream or something like that. You see, that you can develop with a plan. Fantasy is just wonderful. All right, it's being shattered to smithereens right now. If you are suffering with this coronavirus thing, I'm going to tell you that you have the world a certain way framed in your head, and when historical reality is smashing up again, you're going to be hurt worse. That's what fantasy does. Fantasy is supposed to go now. Reality is supposed to take its place, and many of us have a very strange relationship to reality. It hurts. If that's not the ego child's mind, I don't know what is. We're supposed to, in this world, feel resilient, know how to deal with it, know God is right there with us, or the energy of whatever you want to call it is right there. And then it's all, in some way or another, if we just change and grow and evolve and go with and listen, we're going to be okay. This requires something that you hear a lot in spiritual work: accepting the what is, the big what is right now in this world. No matter what is. The what is, the chaos, is this creative place we're talking about. There's no structure here, no real rules, and the space of creativity, and that's what is here. It is to be formed and molded out of you and your knowledge, your talents, your gifts, your abilities, your predilections, your experience, your insight, your imagination, and your intuition. Some of you will use it, some of you won't, but it's there to be used. And it's time, if you're listening to the show, to dust these things off in you. Exercise them, practice them, put the elements together in different ways. Thank you, Lisa. I'm so glad that you're listening. Put these elements together in different ways and come up with some different ways of doing the world, different ways of serving, different ways of being of value. You see, I think we all need to, and we're in the process of, and this is honestly one of the big things that consciousness is about, is accepting what is. You don't know how to deal with it until you accept what is. In my opinion, and here's this word again, God, I think it's the starting place to deepen your knowledge of God, of energy, of who you really are. It's the starting place, the acceptance of what is. Well, what are we doing instead? We're saying, oh, when is this going to be over? Oh my God, I'm so afraid. Oh, my business is dying. Oh, my money is going. Oh, yeah, well, okay, change is here. Change is here. Use the resource you are, because you're not going to change what's happening here. Accept what is and use it. See how your business can be restructured. See what the world might need. See what you might need as a consumer. Let's add value to this moment out of who you really are. We can't do that if we're too frightened to come out of the corner. So, I'm saying we have to accept what is. We can't hold on to the past. Anybody who does is unhappy, and it started long before this coronavirus thing. This is to time to find out who you are and use it. But boy, does that fly in the face of our issues, right? Because this is where people say to me, you're invalidating my life and everything I've done until now and what I've thought and who I am. And I say, absolutely not. The old is part of, but ladies and gentlemen, it is not the new. There's much more. Okay? It's because you've worked on yourself. It's because you haven't. It's because of who you are and what you know and what that you're listening to a show like this. It's because of everything. Every moment has been significant, whether you remember them or not, that has led you here to what you're going to do with this. And no excuse will do. I'm too old. It's too late. All that. Come on. You recognize what's coming from the ego child's mind now. The higher self mind says, I'll accept what is. I'm an open book. Let's see how I can use all of this that's going on right now. Let's see how to make myself happy and other people happier. Let's see what we can do. And if you don't have an idea that you are quiet within the not knowing. You see, listen to our news and our world right now. Everybody's going crazy because they can't tolerate uncertainty. They can't tolerate it. Pundits all over are saying, oh, could be this, could be that. Listen to the coulds. Ladies and gentlemen, try not to get involved in that, because here's the truth, and it's a fine truth. In spite of what we've told ourselves, in spite of what we've believed in the past, all you've ever had is right now, this moment. You've had the privilege, all a bad one, of learning something, of evolving, of growing, of going with or not. And now we are at a critical juncture where that seems more important than you've ever. How wonderful we have today. I have a real, what did I wrote it in here somewhere. I wonder where I wrote it. She said that whenever she, here it is. Whenever she gets anxious, she thinks about something that her mother used to say to her, and that is, stop worrying. You never die the day before. I howled when I heard that. Stop worrying. You never die the day before. So make this a good day. Make this a good day for the rest of your life. Okay? All right. Don't think as I say all this, I am in any way where we are of this coronavirus. It's a terrible thing. I am not. We must take precautions. We must be responsible for ourselves and even others. But we also must not fear death so much. Do you realize that every issue we have is the child trying to stay alive? It forms the ego in the ego child's mind because it's got to make sense of our world, right? And because everything is about us when we're little tiny kids, and that's all that we see it relative to, we form our issues. Everything's about us. We're not good enough. We're not this. We're not that. We're always wrong. Okay, so all of them are issues. We form those issues to make sense of our world, because if we didn't make a sense of our world and if everything was chaos, we wouldn't survive. Well, that's being challenged right now, isn't it? Well, where's the sense? Anybody have any idea? In you. Deeper levels of who you are. deeper levels of who you are. I did an exercise with my advanced class a while back. I said, I want you to write a description, and I suggest you write this exercise down for you to do later. It's a really good one. So, who are you publicly? What's your public face like? Describe it. Friendly, charming, whatever you're going to say. What's your public face? And list as many adjectives as you can. It's a beautiful cardinal sitting right outside my window, saying hello to all of you. Now, list your private face. The parts of you that no one ever sees. Parts of you that when you're alone, you think about. Now, I think this exercise deserves some attention myself, but I'm going to go on and tell you the answer to the exercise. You want to know what it is? All of that's you. Every bit of it. The only way to resolve these two things, which can be quite separate, confident, I look self-confident, and then the private face may say, I am not at all confident, I doubt myself, I'm scared to death of everything. Well, yeah. Do you realize all of that is you? And here's the irony, we have grown up. If you don't know about consciousness, what we're always trying to do is disguise, push away that private face. The irony to this is that consciousness is about accepting it all. And to accept what is in the world, we have to first accept what is in ourselves. We're all those things. And I'm all those things. And I'm a lot more too, guys. But only in our saying, only in our embracing the fact that we are not confident, that we have low self-esteem or whatever. Only in our embracing that do we say, that is now a choice for me. Am I going to let that be my programming? Or am I going to be not self-confidence to the max in reaction, but am I going to be real? I think in this world right now, it's time to be real. You keep in mind that everybody who's feeding you stories out there has an agenda, and they're writing from their issues. Please do know that. I'm not criticizing that. I'm saying, well, that's fine, as long as you recognize it and know what you think. You must know what you think. And that's down there too, in the deeper levels of self. Okay. Of course, I want you to take precautions to stay well. Of course I do. But I also think we should not live with the specter of death hovering over us like we did when we were kids. And that we work from trying to survive until you're 7 or 8 years old. Some people have overlearned that lesson. By the time we are the age we are, and I say you're all different ages watching this show, our goal is not survival and enduring, but consciousness and opening and learning more and evolving and growing and adding value. That's what's going to make us happy. Today, as I said, is all you have. It's all you've ever had, in spite of what you've told yourself. So, stop worrying. You never died the day before. One of the things I keep people arguing over is that everybody has a different idea of how to be safe. Yours is not the same as someone else's. You've heard the expressions our mothers have probably told us. I'm not worried about your driving. I'm worried about what everybody else is going to do, right? I think this coronavirus thing has an element of that, don't you? You know, we know what we do and what we feel safe doing, but we don't know what everybody else is doing out there. And I do think that rather than judge them, we just make sure that we're taking those precautions. Everybody is entitled to have their opinion, but I can protect myself from the people that are still partying out there by doing what I've got to do right now, right? I think it's certainly reflecting our consciousness, whatever we do, and that's all right. It is. Just keep your mind on yourself and what you're going to do to feel safe. I am socially isolating, absolutely. I do go to the grocery store for food. I wear gloves. I carry Everclear, a golden grain, and I do suggest this is wonderful for you all too. The higher the proof of alcohol you can get at the liquor store, the better. Don't drink it, spray it. Use it in a spray bottle. I know Everclear and golden grain, which I've used for years, has 151 proof. I think a friend of mine bought something called Diesel that's 180 proof. Darlings, that'll kill everything. However, the bourbon you have in your cabinet or the scotch is too low a proof. It's not going to kill the virus. But some of these higher things will. And that's wonderful. So, you know, I spray my gloves, I spray my shoes, I spray the vegetables that I bring home and that kind of thing. I spray the air. And I've sprayed the bed linens with this for years because it kills dust mites. So I've been using this for a long time. I am comfortable with this amount of precaution. Some other people might be more comfortable with other things. I have had no face mask, but I read on the internet how to make one, and I read the other day that you can take paper towels and layer them, right, and then put rubber bands around them, and it makes a nice little thing, and then you put a little strap around it. You got a face mask, which is just great. Super, since we're having a hard time finding them. The face masks certainly aren't going to protect us from the little teeny virus particles, but from the droplets that those little teeny virus particles are in. So I do think those probably are a very good idea. So take that and run with it if you would like. Now, let's talk about this, because I think some people are suffering with the social isolation thing. That does not mean that we have to be cut off from people. Plan lunch and dinner parties on Skype or Zoom or on the phone if your line is like ours and goes down frequently. I hope it doesn't today. In other words, have fun with your friends still in that way. Start a recipe club with friends. We're all bored with what we're cooking these days, right? Ask for the most interesting things and then make it and you know, share the results. Start a writers group and send around a prompt of some sort, and everybody has to write a page on whatever, you know, and critique each other. I think that's just terrific. You know, I don't always see, I need people to read sometimes what I write, because my mother always would say, you write over people's heads. And you know what? I get it now. She's right. I did. For a long time. I try not to do that now, but still, yeah, you guys will be the ones to catch me, which is great, or anybody who reads my writing. Knock around ideas about how you can reinvent your businesses and do things differently. Make plans, and know who to trust, and who is sterilizing themselves in a similar way to you. Keep things in context as well. What environment are you leaving? Is it a clean environment of your home? And where are you going? I am going to the dirty environment of the grocery store, or I'm going to a clean environment to a friend to drop something off. Know where you have left and where you're going, and take the appropriate precautions for sure. Okay? So, the big thing here is we have what we have, right? I'm trying to watch my time too, because there's a lot to talk about. Make the most of having what you have. And stop sitting around feeling sorry for yourself, okay? You keep in mind, if you're feeling sorry for yourself, if you're upset, if you're scared to death, one thing is happening, and it isn't anything that's happening out there. You have isolated yourself. You have abandoned who you really are. This deep level of energy, of knowing, of God. I call it God. Call it whatever you will. But there is something in you that is a spark of creativity and talent and peace and health and everything. It's right there. It's right there. Don't abandon it. That will upset you more than anything else. That's the only thing that will ever upset you. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't abandon it during this time. Connect with it, connect with it, connect with it, connect with it. If meditation helps you connect with it, great. If a radio show like mine helps you connect with it, great. If the books that are out there help you connect, if my book helps you out there connect. By the way, please don't think this is a commercial. It's going to sound like one. That's all right. I'm going to read you something in a few minutes, which is the first part of a book I wrote. It's the first book I wrote a number of years back. I wonder what I did with that quote. I have several quotes in here that I want to share with you. All right. Well, here it comes. This was the first paragraph of my first book. It's called The Life You Want. It is all about this. Okay? Here it is. The first paragraph says, "This is the age of individual consciousness. What you believe, the thoughts you think, and the actions you take from this moment on will determine everything." We're there. We're going to be there for the rest of your lives, and for certainly the rest of mine. All right. That book will help a lot, I think, because it's all about surviving through chaos and what to do about it and all that kind of stuff. All right. The coronavirus experience that's out right now is flying in the face of what we need to lose anyway. Our shallow faith, our fantasies about ourselves, our world, our God, our need to control. Wow. Our need to know we're safe. Our fear of death and dying, our fear of suffering, our absolute intolerance of not knowing. The airways are crowded with people that aren't comfortable with not knowing. And they're just responding to the public, who has to know. They latch on to what's being said because they need an absolute. And when it doesn't turn out that way, they don't know what to do because they're not listening to what they're being told. They're listening to somebody out there and believing that. That's not going to help you. No one knows how life is going to be. But why isn't that all right? You see, in that deep level of energy that I'm talking about right now, everything is all right. You've heard me say that before. Why isn't everything all right? I have friends that call me all the time and they say, "And I heard your voice saying, why isn't that all right? And then I did this instead," which I'm always very pleased about. It's all right because it is. Now let's talk about that. Just because we live differently now and we are going to live differently in the future in some way doesn't mean it's not all right. Listen to your answers to the question when I ask you, why isn't that all right? There isn't one answer you can give me that doesn't come right out of the egoic child's mind. And I'm always real thrilled when I have a client in front of me that says, "Well, I can't think of any answers that are not egoic." I know that we have gotten to a good point when they are policing themselves that way, you know. We want things to be the way they were. We want things to be the way we want them, when we want them, and how we want them. And that's just never going to be. That's called control. And we're all control fiends until we aren't. You don't have to do this anymore. We can confront this now and go on and have a happier life. You're either trying to control or you're cooperating with these higher energies, which are, by the way, the what is. It's about this moment of right now. Your spiritual journey is certainly to take precautions, or if you're sick, allowing that to teach you something and hopefully recovering from that, learning something online or out of a book, trying something that you haven't tried before in the creative avenues available to you, telling somebody you love them and really meaning it on a deeper level. And by the way, when they tell you, allowing yourself to not dismiss it, but really hear it and take it in now. I want to share a poem with you. This is a poem by Dan Albergotti. I love this poem, okay? It's Albergotti, if you want a copy of this. It's called Things to Do in the Belly of the Whale. Things to Do in the Belly of the Whale. The image of the whale, right? Jonah in the whale, right? Now, I sent this poem to some of my friends. If they were into consciousness, they loved it. If they're not into consciousness, they got upset by it. So I'm going to tell you the two things before I read it that I've interpreted quite differently than the way they interpreted it. One of the lines says, "Find the evidence of those before you, destroy it." That upset a lot of people, right? And one of them was brave enough to write me and say, "What the hell does that mean? I've loved looking at Ancestry.com and seeing the people that have gone before." And that's not what this poem is about. This poem is about being human. And you're going to hear another part of it. So they're not saying tear everything apart that you had. They're not saying don't appreciate the past. That line, find the evidence of those before you destroy it, means to analyze what you are wanting to take forward right now and what you are not. Who are you really? Because you are not other people in what they believed. You are who you are now. And there's one other line that I think could be upsetting to people, which is the last line, which says, your toes pointing again and again down into the black depths. That frightens people to death. Down into the black depths. Why? Because it's unknown. That's the unknown that we're talking about. We don't know how this is going to look. We do know we're going to be all right. You see, many people have linked, I don't know what it's going to look like, so I'm not going to be all right. That's coming right out of your kidhood. Those things are linked. They are two separate things. You're going to be all right, and nobody knows what it looks like. Those are two different ideas. Let me read you the poem now that I have headed you off from thinking negatively about it, because I think it's beautiful. Now you keep in mind, this is you, things to do in the belly of the whale. The belly of the whale is your metaphor for this kind of change and chaos and not knowing. Here we go. Measure the walls. Count the ribs. Notch the long days. Look up for the blue sky through the spout. Make small fires with the broken hulls of fishing boats. Practice smoke signals. Call old friends and listen for the echoes of distant voices. Organize your calendar. Dream of the beach. Look each way for the dim glow of light. Work on your reports. Review each of your life's 10 million choices. Endure moments of self-loathing. Find the evidence of those before you. Destroy it. Try to be very quiet and listen for the sound of gears and moving water. Listen for the sound of your heart. Be thankful that you are here, swallowed with all hope, where you can rest and wait. Be nostalgic. Think of all the things you did and could have done. Remember treading water. And we got cut off on Facebook, so I'm going to repeat that. Be nostalgic. Think of all the things you did and could have done. Remember treading water in the center of the still night sea, your toes pointing again and again down into the black depths. I think that's one of the most beautiful poems I've ever heard, maybe because we're all where we are right now. Your toes wanted change. All of us as human beings want change, but when it comes, we go, oh my God! Look, you've got everything in you right now. You've got everything in you right now you need to weather the storm. It's going to be okay. But you better listen, or you're going to suffer. You better go down there to where peace resides. You better find a deeper faith. Why not? Why isn't it all right? I think we all need to work on ourselves and stop fighting others and judging others and being critical, by the way, of ourselves too. I am telling you there are more things that are coming. So it's fine that you don't act on any of this now. It's just that you're not going to enjoy life as much as you did. You're going to suffer a little more. Not because of some, punishment by God. It's because you're not getting down to where you're going to be okay. There is a peace that passes all understanding that's in you, that can handle anything with grace. This is available inside you, past all the hoopla of the ego child's mind. I think this is a wonderful time to be grateful for everything, even recognizing the small stuff that we usually take for granted. I think that this is the time for us to realize and to really commit to the fact that there is no death. It's all one big continuation of life. Yes, we morph and change and the physical body dies, but man, you're a lot more than the physical body. That goes on. And so does love. This is the way to happiness, knowing these deep things. Life is about, life is about life and thriving. It's not about enduring and surviving. Again, those things were important at one point in our process. And when we were young, we had to. But now it's about knowing more. We're supposed to be wise, and wisdom is supposed to evolve and deepen. We must learn to tolerate uncertainty. I think it's fine to listen to the fear-mongering out there, but don't take it as your own. You must witness life sometimes. Witness what's going by without believing it yourself. I want you to learn in this deepening of consciousness, because this is part of the gift that comes from it, to think and feel for yourself. I think that's what the poem meant. Decide who you are. It's a great opportunity in this stillness, in this silence, in the belly of the whale. I mentioned this to people the other day on exercise. You know, here I am saying that God is all you are. God's right here. It presents two ways. It's the fear-based self, it's the love-based self, based self, depending on what we believe about God, about ourselves. If you want to talk to that love-based God that you are, because you're nothing but love except for these things that are in your way, that are fear-based. Take that God that I know is you and put it outside yourself in a chair and have a good talk with it and really listen. Listen to the answers. One day, you can assimilate it back inside again, and you will know what I know about you. There's a big one here that I want to talk about in the last 13 minutes of our show. You've heard me mention that one of my favorite writers, I have two really wonderful people that I really think a lot of. One is Erich Fromm, who was a psychoanalyst, German psychoanalyst. One that I want to mention today is Viktor Frankl. If you all want to look up these people and read their books, Viktor Frankl is spelled Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was Austrian. And Erich Fromm is spelled Erichfromm. He was German. Let's just talk about this, though. Viktor Frankl wrote a book back in 1946 that meant a lot to me. Now, I wasn't born back then, but I found it when I was in college. It was called Man's Search for Meaning. And in that, he chronicled his experiences as a prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. He tells a story about how his book was confiscated that he was working on, and how, because he had meaning in his life, i.e. trying to write the book in his head and on any scrap of paper he could find, it kept him alive, whereas other people who did not feel that way and had no meaning or purpose had less of a chance of survival. He identified 3 psychological reactions experienced by all inmates to one degree or another. Number 1 was the shock during the initial admission phase of the camp. Number 2 was apathy after becoming accustomed to camp existence, in which the inmates valued only what helped themselves and their friends survive. And 3 was a real reaction of depersonalization, which means they didn't see themselves and other people as human beings anymore. And moral deformity, this is his word, came out of that, bitterness and disillusionment, if there was survival and liberation. Now, I want to present to you, even though this is a very dramatic way of presenting that I think we're in the second phase. I think that we have been apathetic for too long as a society, as a world society, by the way. I'm not just criticizing our own. I think we have assumed that everything was going to be the way it was yesterday. And I don't think you can assume that anymore about anything. I think this is the time for our apathy, for you to realize that our apathy was never a really good thing to begin with. Oh, we felt so comfortable in it, like a big comfortable old chair. But now it's about something else. It's about seeing the world with new eyes. Marcel Proust said to us that it wasn't about discovering new lands. was that the world was about. It was about seeing the old ones with new eyes. I think we have that marvelous, marvelous creative potential right now. But you're either going to be in that space of that kind of openness, or you're going to be closed down and afraid. And I hope you won't do that. The future is not going to look like the past. But you're going to be fine if you will cooperate and go with, and if you will meditate on your value and what you can give to yourself and other people, and find this world fascinating. I never particularly liked the old Chinese curse. Do you all remember what it was? May you live in interesting times, it said. Well, I think this is a privilege to live in these interesting times. You will find that too, even if you don't believe it right now. If you will take this journey of acceptance of self and what is, and realizing that we're all human, and that's a wonderful thing to be, and that our divinity is not some outside thing there. Our divinity is in our humanness. We're all vulnerable. We all have been. It's been a fantasy that we have not been. Why isn't that the most wonderful privilege and uniting factor right now in our lives? To me, it is. Darlings, I want you to stay well. I am here to remind you that God is all you are, all you've ever been. And the ascended God, that love-based experience, is right here, right now, on a deeper level of you. We have the privilege of deepening that level always. And all of these things that are happening somewhere out there that sometimes do enter our lives and are very personal, they're all here to help us. Not to kill us, not to thwart us, not to do terrible things to us, but to help us evolve as an individual and as a society. I wish all of you that level of you, which is the peace that passes all understanding. We don't need an explanation for it. It's part of you. It was built into you. But it's there to be tapped. And some of us never reach it, never reach for it, never allow ourselves to go to the journey and find that. So I wish that you do, okay? I wish that for all of you. That's it. I love you. There's a lot more to say, but who cares, okay? All right. Let me know how you're doing, please. My website is martha@marthanovak.com. You can write me through that, and I'd love to hear from you. I love all of you all, too. Thank you so much for your fine words that you've given me today. They mean a lot to me. And God bless you all. Let's do a love you too, sweetheart. Let's do, a prayer here and say, God, or whoever we believe in, you who are all we are, the energy of us on the deepest level of our beings, we now say that we will get to work on the deeper levels of knowing, and that we will live and thrive in you. No matter what is out there, no matter what comes into our lives, we know it is 100% okay, and that we just simply have to find that connection that is there for us to find. Love you all very much. Dear God, thank you for all of this. Let us accept what we can of this lesson and go on and thrive. And we appreciate it, and we are here for ourselves, for each other, and the channels for you always. And so it is. Amen. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for these sweet notes. Janos, I love you. Kat, I love you. Lisa, all of you that wrote in today. I appreciate it so much. Please get this lesson around to people that might need it out there in the world. I think that there's a way to mount these things on social media through Blog Talk Radio. I'm not quite sure I know how to do it, but you all can. I don't think I have that access. But I certainly appreciate it because we're trying to get the word out to people, trying to calm everybody down, okay? And have them look at something sometimes other than what they're looking at. God bless you guys. Take care of your sweet selves. Thrive. Bye-bye. See you next week, by the way. I don't know what we'll talk about. Oh, we're going back to authenticity next week. Okay, there we are. Take care. Bye-bye.